In January 2025, physicist Dr. Nathan Wilson, working in a lab in Maine, discovered strange radio signals. At first, he thought it was just interference or a satellite malfunction. But each day, the signals grew increasingly complex and patterned. He immersed himself in the research, trying to make sense of them. However, on the third day, his colleague, Professor Robert Bennett, noticed something even stranger. The signals seemed to be repeating in geometric progression. As the signals grew stronger with each passing day, Nathan and Robert began to feel the presence of something dark, beyond their understanding. Sometimes the signals seemed to be a human voice, other times they felt like something ancient, endless, distorted by time. Unable to ignore his suspicions, Nathan shared his findings with Dr. Samuel Clyde, a historian and mythologist. Samuel was skeptical but couldn't help but notice one strange detail: the signals they were receiving exactly matched descriptions of ancient myths, long forgotten and lost in the darkest corners of history. One of them was called Cthulhu, a creature that was supposed to awaken when Earth returned to its natural state. Samuel delved into old texts and excavations. In the oldest temples, on stone tablets, there were depictions of a creature with massive tentacles and ominous eyes, resembling the very entity spoken of in scientific circles. The signals grew louder, and their structure made it more and more evident that the source was not in space, but deep underground. Nathan and Robert decided to organize an expedition to the underground catacombs of an ancient city in New Mexico, where rumors said forgotten civilizations might have hidden something terrifying. Inside an abandoned temple, among ancient ruins, they discovered strange inscriptions resembling the symbols in the signals. Upon reading them, Nathan felt a chill of fear in his chest. The inscriptions promised that soon the sleeper will awaken, and the world would be consumed. Each night, Nathan and Robert felt an increasing sense of the presence of something malevolent, beyond human comprehension. Their dreams became more and more disturbing. It seemed that the creature from the myths wasn't just a figment of their imagination, it was real, and its awakening was inevitable. Weeks later, their research led them to a mental eclipse. Nathan and Robert found a hidden entrance to underground catacombs, deep beneath the ruins of an ancient city never mentioned in historical records. Inside, they discovered a massive chamber, its walls covered in green slime, and the air thick with a stench reminiscent of seawater, decay, and rot. As they descended further into the tunnels, the sky above them began to darken, and the ground trembled with vibrations. The signals they had been receiving grew sharp and deafening. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a colossal statue, a depiction of a creature with a massive head and tentacles hiding in the shadows. It was not just an image, it was reality. Before them stood Cthulhu, the ancient being, awoken from its millennia-long slumber. As Nathan and Robert made their way back, they felt the ground beneath their feet begin to shake. With every step, it seemed the tunnel expanded, consuming more and more space, while the air became denser. When they finally emerged, the sky was black, and the land around them was covered in seawater. It seemed as if everything had been consumed by this unknown world. The world was unrecognizable. Televisions, radios, and all forms of communication began broadcasting only one signal: the voice of Cthulhu, declaring, "Your efforts are meaningless. We are returning." The world changed in the blink of an eye. Those who survived the encounter with the dark underground entity were gripped by panic and fear. Cthulhu had awakened, and with each passing hour, its influence grew stronger. The signals, once mere anomalies, had now become the main source of information for everyone. On every channel, its voice rang out, both alluring and terrifying. Everything that had once belonged to humanity now seemed insignificant in the face of this ancient evil. Dr. Nathan Wilson, having already lost hope, tried to piece together the remaining fragments of the scientific understanding of what was happening. But something was wrong. Every time he attempted to analyze the signals or understand how to stop the threat, his mind lost the ability to distinguish reality from nightmares. In his dreams, the same image appeared over and over again: giant Cthulhu, its enormous tentacles consuming the world, and its eyes glowing green like an eternal abyss. Meanwhile, in cities around the world, people began losing touch with reality. Some went mad from the constant barrage of strange signals. Others began to gather in massive crowds, sincerely believing that Cthulhu was their salvation and the end of humanity was the only path to freedom. An apocalyptic tyranny gripped the world. Economies collapsed, governments began to crumble. Cities were covered in mud and fog, as if nature itself was trying to cleanse itself of the beings who had ruled for too long. The most powerful buildings crumbled like houses of cards. And wherever water appeared, it brought death. Huge storms ravaged the coastlines, and underground waters rose, eroding houses and streets. Nathan and his colleagues, despite their despair, decided to try to find the key to stopping Cthulhu. They turned to the remaining sane and alive individuals. The surviving scientists, historians, astronomers, archaeologists, and mystics gathered, hoping to find a way to close the gates through which this evil entered the world. In a laboratory in the shadowed city of Boston, they managed to assemble and build theories. Historians discovered that the entity Cthulhu was meant to awaken at the moment humanity reached the peak of technological progress, which was exactly what had happened. Its powers were linked to ancient stars and unknown laws of physics that defied modern theories. They realized that the only way to defeat the monster was to awaken an even older and more powerful force than Cthulhu itself. But for this, they needed to return to the darkest corners of the earth, to the sources known only to a few ancient civilizations. The team of scientists and seekers set off to the underwater caves along the Pacific Ocean, where they believed one of the oldest temples, built by a civilization that had come into contact with Cthulhu in prehistoric times, was hidden. Old maps pointed to a location where the underwater caves formed a labyrinth resembling a web, and the deep waters hid not only entities but forces capable of destroying everything that had been built. Their journey was full of dangers. The water in these caves wasn't just dark, it was alive. Every movement created waves that seemed to move on their own, as if some force were controlling the water currents. The cave walls were covered with strange drawings depicting terrifying creatures with fish-like heads, their bodies intertwined with gigantic tentacles, dragging their victims into the abyss. Here, in the darkness of the underwater world, they found artifacts engraved with information that Cthulhu's existence was closely tied to the moon and its phases. Every full moon amplified its powers, and it was at this moment, when the entire planet would be in a state of maximum vulnerability, that its power would be sufficient to completely dominate the world. When the next full moon arrived, Earth was already nearly unrecognizable. Giant waves rolled across the oceans, swallowing cities. Lightning shattered the sky, and the ground in various parts of the world began to crack. Citizens, believing in the inevitability of their doom, took to the streets, holding banners of Cthulhu. Churches and religious organizations were destroyed, many world leaders had disappeared or gone mad, and those who remained tried to persuade the people to submit to the new order. The signals from the ocean grew louder and more distinct, and it seemed that the planet itself was covered by some kind of shroud, the breath of this cosmic monster. People no longer resisted. Their beliefs, their fears, their hopes were now just parts of what was unfolding. It was clear to all that Cthulhu ruled the world. But amid this chaos, a small group of people remained determined to fight until the end. They believed that there was still a chance that the creature could be stopped if its will could be taken under control. The only way to do this was to find the places where the ancient force that had once imprisoned Cthulhu could be awakened again. Their journey was long, and they knew time was running out. The Earth was only a step away from consuming the remnants of human civilization. But they continued to search, for hope dies last, and only those who are ready to confront the inevitable deserve a chance at salvation. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and watch my other videos.